I'd like to introduce myself. I am Dana M. Hendershot, lead prosecutor of Hendershot, Marshall and Associates. I would like my partner to introduce himself.
Thank you. I'm Dennis Marshall.
And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, and you all are the members of the jury, because there are those who claim that Jesus never had a fair trial, that no defense witnesses were ever heard, that it was all a plot by the Pharisees, that Jesus never had a chance. We have called you together to hear the story of Jesus and for you to declare a verdict. In truth, Jesus was originally tried and condemned by his own religious leaders, and he was interrogated by Pontius Pilate. Before them, he admitted to believing himself to be the Christ, the Son of God.
He lived out, we are told, the words of Isaiah. He grew up like any other boy. As a man, he was like any other. There seemed to be nothing special about him. He wasn't especially handsome or charismatic. Oh, he did some healings, performed some magic tricks, made the despised feel good. He had a small band of followers, but they all deserted him when the going got tough, except for some women, of course.
There's talk that Jesus bore the sins of humanity for us. Now, some believe that as the Son of God, he came to satisfy God's justice, to suffer and die for those who believe in him, and will be spared the just punishment of their own sins. Now, I don't know about you, fellow sinners, but I wouldn't go through all of that suffering, be cut off from living anymore, and certainly not for undeserving types that he seemed to care so much about. Why, it is said he made the sacrifice even for people who have rebelled against God. It is further claimed that by believing in Jesus, people are made righteous by God, before God, that they no longer see their sins, even if the sins were terrible, were shameful. Now, all of these things are claimed, but we need to hear witnesses, people that actually knew him, heard him, were healed by him. You can tell a lot about a person, about the company that they keep. Therefore, in the coming weeks, we will interrogate disciples and common people that claim Jesus touched them in some special ways. Be prepared, members of the jury. These are not the nice people that you are used to. Some have lived despicable lives. Be ready also to listen to their testimonies with a discerning ear. All of them have been declared hostile witnesses. Because as Jesus' supporters, they will try to convince you that the claims made about Jesus are true.
You will hear Matthew, a tax collector. Now, we all know that in addition to being servants of the Roman government, these men were sneaky and dishonest. No good church person would have anything to do with them. We will particularly question Matthew about a certain meal which not only he, but even worse sinners shared with Jesus. Listen carefully to what he will tell you Jesus said when the religious leaders expressed concern about the type of people with whom he was associating. The next week, we will hear testimony from a woman who claims to have been healed of a spinal condition that had an 18-year history. While you may sympathize with this woman's years of suffering, keep in mind that Jesus performed this work of healing on the Sabbath, a direct violation of the law.
And we'll hear from Nicodemus another week. Now, he is actually an exception to the riffraff from which the other witnesses are drawn. He's a scholar, a member of the Sanhedrin, a religious governing body over the Jews. Now, surely he hasn't been deceived by this God pretender. I'm sure that he will be able to show us that Jesus' teachings fall apart under the scrutiny of close theological examination. We hesitate to even bring you the witness scheduled for the following week because her lifestyle was so scandalous that she was about to be stoned. We will not offend your sensibilities by describing in detail her adulterous behavior. It is Jesus, after all, who is on trial and well should be. Because instead of affirming those who are upholding the standards of morality, Jesus forgave her. She claims, of course, that the experience totally changed her life.
The week after that, we will hear from one of the inner circle of Jesus' disciples. Some say the one closest to Jesus. We are certain to wring from him some evidence of Jesus' private teachings.
And on Monday, Thursday, we will hear another of Jesus' disciples, Simon Peter, who will testify that Jesus turned the table of our society's morals by washing the feet of his students and humbly serving the people whom he supposedly was actually leading. He then called on those disciples, and by the way, all future followers, to be servants of one another, suggesting that we completely upend our culture. He will be shown the worst sort of anarchist.
On Good Friday, there will be a summation of the arguments and testimonies, and you will be charged as the jury to decide Jesus' fate. We realize that this may seem like a long trial and that it may be asking a lot of you to hear all these witnesses, but remember, you are charged with a solemn responsibility. You will decide whether Jesus is who he is claimed to be and whether his life, death, and resurrection have meaning. It will be up to you whether the sins with which you were born and with which you could die are easily washed away as ashes on a forehead, just by accepting the forgiveness Jesus offers.
Now, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is the case that we have set before you. And we suggest that during your weeks of hearing the evidence and deliberating on it, that you review careful the supporting documents, the lessons for each week. Examine also in your own lives for the evidence of the accused's influence. Consider what part Jesus plays in what you think and what you do. And feel free to talk among yourselves and with those outside of the courtroom about what it is that you hear. Yours is an absolutely solemn duty. Exercise it well. This court is in recess.